factors. Hi, this is Al McFarlane, host of the Conversation with Al McFarlane. You're listening to 90.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you underground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you break. We've had enough of all the money you make. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is a proclamation. It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough
of all the rules you were breaking.
We've had enough
of all the money you were making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. You better believe, just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough. All the money you're making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is the proclamation. We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We had enough.
Void?
John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand. We've had enough. Sean Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said? We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square in South Minneapolis. And yes, we've had enough. Thanks to Ryan and his team, including my brother Wayne, for that marvelous music. And in fact, Ryan and Wayne and colleagues are here. We'll be presenting some live music during the course of the hour. If you're in the neighborhood, you're welcome to drop in. We're at King Demetrius Pendleton's marvelous, wonderful studio here at George Floyd Square. The studio is Listen to Us Studio. It's at 3730 Chicago Avenue in South Minneapolis, George Floyd Square. This is the fifth day of live broadcast here on KFAI from George Floyd Square. We finish our George Floyd Week specials tomorrow, Saturday, 1 o'clock. Join us wherever you are around the world or around the community, broadcasting again from George Floyd Square from Listen to Us Studio. Well, let me begin by setting the intention, and I want to go straight to a pivotal figure in the prosecution of the officers that were responsible for the death of George Floyd. Joining me here in this studio is Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison, good afternoon. Again, thank you for all you did for the families, for justice, and for the world in prosecuting those responsible for the death of George Floyd. As you come up on the anniversary tomorrow, what's on your mind? What are your thoughts?
Well, I just think it's such an honor to be at this sacred space where George Floyd called to his mother. He called for help. He called to breathe, and his call can never be unheeded. I'm just really just awestruck at the level of commitment that his family continues to have. They'll never forget him, and we have to be in complete solidarity with them. And I'll just note for folks, I mean, there is something about when a person is killed, murdered at the hands of somebody who was an agent of the state, because the state is us. The state is all of us. The state is our government. And when a private individual commits a crime or kills somebody, the state is going to hold them accountable. But what about when an agent of the state does it? It makes it different. And it means that the state, in order to maintain just credibility, maintain any sense of trust, must move to hold that particular offender accountable, or everything is chaos, where people don't trust, they don't cooperate. And so I've had people say, well, it's tragic that George Floyd died, but, it's a murder. Murders happen every day. No, this is unique because this happened in the hands of the people we entrust, the guardian. And by doing so, he besmirched the reputation of every great officer who tries to do the right thing every day. By still doing, and therefore we had to move to hold him accountable. And as I sit here, Al, I got to tell you, I'm not sure that if a courageous 17-year-old girl didn't have the presence of mind to whip out her phone and take pictures, we may not be sitting here today. We may be, because I tell you, 2 blocks south of here, man, on 36 in Chicago, in 1998, you may remember me and Larry Reed and Jeff Hassan civilly sued Minneapolis Police Department for shooting Lawrence Miles in the back, who was 15 years old at the time. Now, Miles did not die, but he's 45 today and has permanent injuries, which he's never been compensated for, because I'm not proud to admit we lost. So people have said to me, oh, Keith, thanks for what you did on that case. I'm like, I'm thinking about, we've lost cases we should have won because of the way jurors saw our client. And so let me tell you, man, this came from a lot of hard knocks. This came from disappointment and grief. And I will say that when the governor called me, I did have a sense of what needed to be done. And because of losses that it came before. So I view it as a tremendous privilege. I think all of the credit really goes to the courage of George Floyd to call out for his own life, to the bystanders who called out for his life, who came back a year later, and all of them testified as to what they saw, despite the fact that these are not public people. These are private individuals who want to mind their own business. His family, I remember flying down to Houston, meeting his loved ones here, who had such, they would be well within their rights to simply grieve their loved one. But they all have stood up and given more and brought attention to it and said, hey, look, we don't want this to happen to anybody else's brother, cousin, uncle, So that you asked what's on my mind, all that's on my mind.
I think that the whole world is feeling that we're at an inflection point. How would you describe that? What does this mean for not just this community, not just this family, but all the families we mentioned? In the video we watched opening this, we saw this field of tombstones around the corner that reflect the people that have been killed by gun violence, particularly law enforcement violence, over the past several years. What does this mean in terms of how we are able to assemble a response that leads us towards justice and clarity and freedom in the future, not only here, but everywhere?
Well, I'll tell you a little story, just a little story. This morning, I was at a Attorney General's conference in Austin, Texas. Got on a flight 6:40 a.m. And these Austin police officers, they said, "Hey, you the Ellison guy?" I'm like, "Sure." Like, "Man, thank you for leading that prosecution." I said, "I don't deserve no thanks, but on behalf of everybody who worked on it, who made it happen, who called attention, including the protesters, starting with them, I will say thank you." We cannot be confused. There's an inflection point within law enforcement. I was at the Noble, the National Organization of Blacks in Law Enforcement. They wanted me to talk about this case because they're like, we are committed to doing things differently. They shared with me some of the pressures they're up against since this time, since with the prosecution. I've conferred with people in Monroe, Louisiana, Memphis, Tennessee, New York, Atlanta, Louisville, all over the country about how to prosecute these cases. I've spoken at several prosecutor conferences on how to deal with everything from dealing with the press to dealing with, how they're going to tarnish your client, dealing with juries because they want to poison the well before the jury ever gets called. They want to make sure they're already against your client. Dealing with experts, dealing with all these things to help put together a meaningful prosecution. Brother, they even invited me to London, England, because they got problems there. Yeah. In Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria, see, a lot of us think this is a racialized thing, and it is, but it's ultimately an abuse of power. Yeah. We entrust the guardians to safeguard us, and therefore they have a lot of discretionary latitude. And that's the way the law is written, and that's the way it probably should be written. But that means that only the most ethical people should ever hold this job, right? And I'm proud to tell you that many of them are on the team. They want to change it. Corporate leaders want to change it. I was talking earlier today about the business case for police reform. Minneapolis has paid out $100 million in civil rights cases over the last 10 years. Think about that. Whoa, but that's nothing compared to Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York, or Atlanta. We know that if there is an ongoing, really bad relationship between police and community, there's going to be a riot sooner or later. That's just a fact. It's just going to happen.
It's not if, it's a question of when.
It's a question of when. Look at the Kerner Commission report of 1967, which documented 2,000 riots, all sparked by this phenomenon. And then there's the issue of trust. We need to live in safe communities. We deserve to live in safe communities. As a prosecutor, I can tell you that private citizens do commit crimes against each other. They do. They sell dope in neighborhoods. They do domestic violence. They commit sexual. It happens. Mm-hmm. If you have a community that has a bad relationship with the police department, you will have fewer people cooperating in holding those people accountable. I think police brutality actually causes crime because if people are like, I'm not going to answer the knock on the door if the officer says, did you hear anything in the alley? But I see somebody in blue, then I'm going to be like, well, maybe I don't answer the door because I remember what happened to my cousin. And, the subpoena, you get a subpoena. I'm not cooperating with them. They can catch me if they can. We know that if you are a person trying to be a criminal, the best place to do your crime is where that community has a bad relationship with the police department. Mm-hmm. The worst place to do your crime is where they have a good relationship. And you notice, and you and I have good friends in North Minneapolis, when the pastors got together with Charlie Adams and created 21 Days of Peace, we reduced all kinds of street level criminal violence, but it was all based on not the police only, not the community only, but the combination of the two, making for a safer community. So there is every reason in the world for us to continue the drive for accountability, for reform, every reason in the world. And I just tell officers every day, hey, this is not against you. This is against the people who break the oath. This is against the people who dirty the badge. In my last election, I had some people in law enforcement mad at me, spent $3 million to try to defeat me. The MPPOA did. We're cool. We talked about it. We worked it out, but they were trying to beat me, right? Sure. And so I was telling them, it's not me that hurt your reputation. It's Derek Chauvin. Don't be mad at me. Be mad at him. I didn't put the badge in the mud. He did. I actually pulled it out and washed it off so that other officers don't have to be judged by the evil, wicked work that he did. So those are some thoughts on my mind. I'm sorry for going on so long.
That's perfect. Keith, thank you so much for being here. I know you got a tight schedule. We got other guests here. Before we go to them, let me say who's going to be here. City Council former President Andrea Jenkins is here. Good to see you. And this is your ward, 8th Ward. And so I'm going to want you to talk about that. And the Sheriff of Hennepin County, Sheriff Witt is here, and we'll ask her to reflect on what's happening in community now beyond, and as we move out of that. But we have family here as well, and I'm pleased that Angela Harrelson is here. She's George Floyd's aunt, along with Mahalia Jones, George Floyd's aunt. We also have an artist who's here. Paris Stearns is here. Paris is his first cousin for George Floyd, and an artist who, if you've come to George Floyd Square, you see a lot of tremendous art and sculpture. Jordan Powell is the artist who's done that. We also have joining on the program my colleague, Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya. Our Friday program, we called it the Healing Circle, and this is the brainchild of Dr. Bravada Garrett Akinsanya. She heads the African American Child Wellness Institute. And isn't this about child wellness? Are all of our children being well, being healthy, being healed? And we normally start with the protocol that sets in motion how we be together for shows like this. Dr. B, let me say hi to you first of all, and welcome you to, again, be with me on the Healing Circle at the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Take a minute and walk us through the protocol.
Thank you so much. And I'm so happy that we're doing this to commemorate George Floyd and all the Black men and women on whose shoulders we stand. We enter this moment as a sacred space. We call it the Healing Circle because African people, we convene in circles. Because in the circle, there's no top, no bottom, no beginning, no end. We all are equal in that circle and have equal access to voice, which is the center of the circle. So in that circle, we begin by honoring our elders. And we honor our elders because those are the shoulders we stand on. And realizing somebody hoped our way, worked our way, and prayed our way into existence. And as we honor our elders, we remember to honor our ancestors, because those are the shoulders that our elders stood on. And our ancestors are honored because they are closer to our Creator. So as we sit in this space, recognizing our connection with all things living and inanimate, that we recognize we are brothers and sisters on this planet, and we honor that. And in this circle, we have a sacred mission of telling and speaking our truth. We use a virtual talking stick because we're not always in the circle in the same space. So we pass the stick, and if someone has something they need to say, you ask for the stick. You can get the stick. Sometimes the spirit moves. You need the stick, and you got to say something. And today we honor all the sacred, orderly way in which we as an African people have survived since the Garden of Eden, have survived and thrived for thousands of years. And with that, we say to all whose shoulders we stand, all who have sacrificed us, we speak the name George Floyd, and we say, Ashe. That means thank you. Ashe. Ashe. So I'll pass the talking stick back to you, Baba Al, and thank you for including this sacred ritual as part of our gathering. As everyone in the audience, claims the word ashe to thank those on whose shoulders they stand. And with that, I say thank you. Ashe. Here's the sit. You're muted, Brother Al. You're muted, Brother Al. Still muted.
You unmute. There we go. So, do you hear me okay now?
Yes, we do.
So I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. We're broadcasting live from George Floyd Square. We have a wonderful facility called Listen to Us Studio, owned by King Demetrius Pendleton, artist, photographer, servant of community, creating a wonderful space to carry the memory forward. He's documented the story of 38th in Chicago of George Floyd Square. He's documented the protest. And you can check out his work here. It's worthy. It's important work. It's historic work. Check it out. Come by anytime. Today's program is going to include a conversation with the former president of City Council, Andrea Jenkins, and also the current sheriff of Clinton County, Sheriff DeWitt. Sheriff Dawanna Witt. Dawanna Witt. I'm making you somebody else. Thank you for correcting me. And members of the George Floyd family as well, and others. But we're going to take a break right now and listen to Wayne and Ryan to give us more of the spirit of this program.
Live from George Floyd Square, right?
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up and down, lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you? Oh, lady,
Red, white, and blue.
did they take your dignity with their bigotry, teach you that you're born to lose? Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy, better believe. Roll up your sleeves, it's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough of all the money you're making. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is our proclamation. It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now and the people won't wait. Action, no more distraction. Every step we take we gain traction. If it can happen to one, then it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Roll up your sleeves, it's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. We've had enough. We've had enough of all the money you're making. We've had enough. We've had enough. This is our proclamation. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe. Roll up your sleeves, it's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough. Said we've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough of all the money you're making. We've had enough, no more life gets taken. We've had enough, this is our proclamation. We've had enough. Trayvon Martin, Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void? How can we feel? We've had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Man, won't you come and take a stand? We've had enough. Sean Bell, Sam Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, do you hear what I say? Yeah, we've had enough.
What a wonderful song. I'm hoping that we have good audio on the radio. It sounds marvelous here at the studio. And if it's not exactly that, you have to just bring your part to receiving the spirit of this music and the spirit of this gathering. I want to say hi, first of all, and bring in Angela, family members. Angela, thank you for being here. Introduce your sisters, if you would. And hold the microphone. You hold the microphone. Yeah.
Auntie, to the left of me is Terry Stevens, who's George Floyd's first cousin, and to the right of me from North Carolina, George Floyd's auntie as well.
What does this day mean to you? What does it mean to be thinking about George Floyd, tomorrow being the anniversary of his death?
Well, there's so many things that run through my mind. It's a milestone. It's another milestone that towards the journey towards healing, not just for the family, but for the community as well. You know, we've had made some advances, but we're far from saying, hey, you know, we're all home free from all of this. But, you know, this is the George Floyd community has become a very sacred place. It's a special place, you know. When my nephew was killed, the community stepped up, and I lost a nephew. We lost a nephew, cousin, but we gained a community, and they truly stepped up in helping me towards my journey towards healing, because we all had collected trauma together. And I'm just so thankful to still have the community still thinking this thing is, I mean, they still like power to the people. They're still in this fight. We're still in this fight together. We are still here. You know, I think the amazing thing after 4 years, and you guys can join in on this, after 4 years, we are still here holding it down. We are still here and have not given up. And that is powerful to see. That is very powerful to see.
I love that you said you lost a loved one, but you gained community.
Yes.
That's powerful. Let me ask your sister and your niece to talk, give your impressions, your feelings. Sister.
Okay.
This is Mahalia Jones.
Oh, yeah.
She was named after Mahalia Jackson.
Okay. Every year, I always come down for the anniversary. I say anniversary of George Floyd death. You know, it's never easy, you know, when you lose a loved one, but the way we lost him. So every day, you know, it's different. It's a struggle. It's some days it's like a relief, because you see how people just care, how they stood up, you know, for him when he when this all happened. I'm sorry, y'all get all like blundered, but I'm getting together.
It's okay. It's still emotional.
It's really, really emotional, because you don't know how it affects people. People are different. Some people can go on and say, hey, it'll be okay, but it's not okay.
That's right.
It's just not. It's just not okay.
And what we found in the family,
it's not okay.
and what we found in the family, that we all grieve differently because we knew him differently, you know, and we're all at different places, you know, and people ask me all the time, Angela, I don't know how you do it. Every time I turn around, you get that square. But they have to realize I have a community that was with me towards this journey. So it's a little bit easy for me because we're surrounded.
So I'm George Floyd's first cousin. My mom and his mom were sisters. Every day I think about George Floyd. So even though this is his anniversary, each day I remember.
That's right.
So for me, it's the same message. We all have a purpose. We all have a voice, no matter how old you are. No matter where you are in life, your voice matters. So we want officers to be accountable. And so now we are accountable now for making change happen. Policies still need to be changed. There are many things that have changed thus far. Policies within different states, from state to state, things have changed. So I don't want anyone to think that because someone else has been killed that we've had a setback. Stay positive, stay together. This community here is like an example of how a lot of communities should be. And unfortunately, it's just not that way. But when you come here, you do feel a sense of peace and welcoming and love. And that's what, that's what carries me a lot of the time, is that I know that there are more good people in the world than there are bad.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane, broadcasting live from George Floyd Square. I'm going to go to Sheriff Dawanna Witt. Hand her the microphone there. And Sheriff, thank you for being here. You're the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for Hennepin County. Thank you for the work you do, the leadership you provide. I know it's a difficult job, but as you see the community and your team organizing to respond to the feeling and the hurt in the community around the anniversary of George Floyd's death, how do you prepare? What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Well, you don't prepare, you just be your authentic self. And when you're hurting, you're hurt. When you need to cry, you cry. When you need a hug, you ask for that hug. For me, I actually grew up in this community. The Boys and Girl Club that's at Phelps Park, it used to be on 36. I used to trot myself to the Cup Foods, go to Powderhorn Park. So this is my community. The day after Mr. Floyd died, how I learned about this was that 17-year-old girl's video. That's how I saw it on Facebook. That's the first time I heard about it. And I took myself to work. At the time, I was just the major at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, not necessarily the sheriff. And, there's some of my staff that are here with me, but there were tears in our office. We're like, what's about to come next? But something I'm going to is the unrest that occurred after, and specifically downtown. I've been in this field for 24 years now. I am that kid that grew up in this very community who did not like police, who did not trust police, did not think that they were for me. And those are because of my own lived experiences. So for me now to be in this field 24 years later, I will tell you from the day I started till this very day, I always said I'm going to be who I needed to see, who my siblings needed to see. But being on the front line of some of the unrest that went on, and then there were people that looked like me that would call me names, was the first time I ever questioned, what am I doing? Am I on the wrong side of the law? What's going on? But I had to check myself, because you know what? We need representation everywhere, and we need people to embrace. You are who you are. Don't forget where you came from, and how do you make this world better? So I forced myself to continue to go out there to talk to people who were angry, not at me, at this profession, right? Because I worked too hard to give up now. I told people that it was an accident. It wasn't. God knew what he was doing with me, and I have no doubt I was where I was supposed to be, when I was supposed to be there, to make sure, again, as a person who came from this community, to represent for people who are overlooked, who are not heard, who are not taken serious, and not forgetting where they came from. So I have a purpose in all of this too. And being authentic is the only thing I know how to do. Even though with this profession, sometimes they try to conform it where you have to be like a robot. That's not me. So as much as I was hurting with you, for you all, honestly, I had to keep showing up, and I knew I had to keep using my voice at that table.
Sure. Let me ask you then, what is needed to bridge the gap between and trust between police and community? How do we do that?
When you talk about having a beat in the community, you got to be a part of that community. I'll tell you, years ago, when I first worked for Hennepin County, they would not promote me because they said I knew too many people who went to jail from the community. I had family members that went to jail from the community, so I couldn't be trusted. And then 16 years later, I come back as a major, right? Here, yeah, okay, I gave y'all a break, but now I'm back. You're right, I knew people in jail who were part of the community. Yep, I had family members oftentimes in jail that were a part of this community. The people in our jails are a part of the community. And so when we talk about how do we bridge this, you really have to embrace being a part of the community. You can't say because I know it goes 4th, 5th Avenue and know your streets, but who live in this house? Who owns this store? You know, talking to somebody recently about just policing. I did an internship in the UK to compare American policing to how they do it over there. But I remember them talking about how the first 3 months of being a police officer, you didn't get a car. You were on foot because that made you have to interact with people. We're too short to do things like that right now. But you know what? It isn't rocket science. It's going back to the basic. You will not do that without interaction. You will not do that without communication. You will not do that with completely being able to embrace people, even if they look different than you, if they pray different than you, it doesn't matter. I'm a person who say, I don't expect you to trust me because I have a uniform on. I expect to earn that trust. And you're going to get that because we're going to interact and we're going to talk. Again, being that girl who did not trust, who was afraid of police. And people ask me, how is it that you're doing this now? It happened through interaction, communication, learning people. And yeah, you know what? There's a lot of good police officers, deputies out there, and there are bad ones who make it bad for everyone. But I can't let them win. We do need to hold ourselves more accountable as a profession. But you know what? We also need the good people who got into this for the right reasons to stay.
That's right.
So that we can bridge this gap between community and policing. You cannot conform. You can't be somebody else. Be yourself and embrace it. Embrace it. I've been told, you know, you're a leader. You're not supposed to cry. If something make me sad, I'm going to cry. I'm a crybaby. You know, or, you know, sorry, my sister's back there and I'm a pick on her, but you know, one day, and it just always stuck with me when she came to me as a sheriff and she goes, we're not used to this many people having access to the sheriff. People should have access to the sheriff. I take my oath seriously. And if I'm truly going to represent the community, how am I going to do that without having access? We all know we're told things, we're told stories, but are you hearing it from the people that are on the front line? Right? And I do mean community by that. So, and I like to talk a lot, so it's a bonus.
We're glad you're here, and we're glad you like to talk and communicate. Go ahead and applaud. That's great. That's great. City Council member, 8th Ward Representative Andrea Jenkins said, there should be a microphone over there, and you see one. You have it on. Welcome and thank you for being here. Take us back to that day. You were president of the Minneapolis City Council when you learned about, and this is your ward, and you lived here for a long time. You're embedded.
25 years.
See, so you know this community. What happened? How did the news come to you? What did you feel as Andrea, a human being, but also you have this responsibility? You are the president of the Minneapolis City Council. Take us back to that day.
Wow, I'm so glad you framed the question in that way, Al. And before I give any remarks, I do want to just offer my really deep and sincere condolences to the family and to our community, because I know people are still grieving, still traumatized, still hurt. And I know that because, as you stated, Al, this is my community. I live here. I'm here in the square. I see Angela. I'm like, I don't know how you do it, Angela. I'm like everyone else, but you're here and you show up. That I learned about the murder of George Floyd that morning of May 26th, about 1:30 in the morning. I got a call from the mayor's public safety aide, and she asked me, had I seen the video? And I said, what video? I don't know what you're talking about. She was sobbing, she was in tears. So I went online and I started trying to see if I could figure what she was talking about out. And it didn't take too long. I got to Nakima Levy Pounds. She was Levy Pounds at the time, page, and there was the video. And I saw the video. I watched all what we thought was 8 minutes and 46 seconds, but we learned later that it was more like 9+ minutes. And I thought about my great grandfather, his father, my father who was incarcerated for 15 years of my life, and just so many Black men that have been disabused by our systems of, quote, justice, right? And we know that policing in America started as a form of control over enslaved Africans. And that has persisted throughout history, through Jim Crow and lynching, and all of these things were just going through my head as I was watching Derek Chauvin with his knee on George Floyd's neck. And then subsequently, the next day, there was a press conference. And, actually, I was the vice president of the council then, but the president was out of town. It was Memorial Day weekend. The president was out of town, and so I was the leader of the council. And, I got up to the podium and I had my remarks all laid out. And the Spirit told me, we need some art in this moment. We need some healing. And when I opened my mouth, Amazing Grace just started pouring out of me. Because I think that's what we needed in that moment. And I think that's what we continue to need right now, is grace for each other, for our communities. And, I think back to that day when everyone in town showed up at this intersection. And if you all recall, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. And we hadn't seen people for months. And thousands of people showed up at this intersection, and it was like a family reunion. It was so much love and care and support for each other. There was anger. But really, there was.
Let me jump in there. Let me have you sit with that for a minute. I haven't heard this said before. So I understood and felt and would understand people rushing to the street mad, angry, ready to tear it down. But you're saying that there was something different afoot. Talk about that. Tell me more about that.
No, it was completely different from that. It was really a sense of we have to come together as a community and hold each other right now because of the pain of watching that video was so intense. And, you know, there were people who made speeches and people who talked, but there was no anger until, and you know, from here, people marched down 38th Street, headed towards the 3rd precinct. And they were singing songs of, you know, peace and love, we shall overcome. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. And so when I heard the news, you know, I'm mobility challenged. I couldn't march with the crowd, but when I heard the news that there was an uprising at the 3rd precinct, I was actually surprised because the feeling at George Floyd Square, it was 38th in Chicago then, it's now George Floyd Square, but the feeling that was there was one of we are here to support each other. That was the feeling of love, community, and support.
Jordan Powell Karras is an artist, and if you've come down to George Floyd Square, you'll see statues that celebrate and commemorate the events of this time that we're speaking about. Jordan, what have you done? Talk about your work, what you've created, and what's been the motivation.
So I showed up here after I saw the city on fire. I was living in Denver at the time. I drove across the country. I had a truck full of tools. I thought I would fix up a shop on Lake Street. Everything was already boarded up. I was called by my community, you know, friends and such, come down to 38th Street. That's where people are at. And we quickly, in about 2 days' time, constructed the original fist statue. It wasn't meant to last. I assumed it would have been destroyed, burnt down, something would have happened. I had to go back to Denver to work. When I showed back up 6 months later, it was standing and the summer of uprising had happened, which was this community coming out day after day, doing mutual aid, supporting each other, standing with each other, doing many, many more art projects, having food out regularly, medical tents, people's closet, people's way, all these things were coming about. It was really magical to see. And they said, can we continue to make this last? I said, the fist wasn't supposed to last. So I tap in with, you know, Chicago Fire Arts Center. We get a metal fist built. And since then, it's been, you know, 4 years of keeping that going in my way of supporting it with this art. There's 5 fists here at George Floyd Square. How they come about is a very unique story in its own, too long to tell right here. But the overarching theme has been a divide from higher energy within our system, call it our government, some of our political leaders that truly haven't stepped down and gotten to know the community. Like we've said, it's been so important. And that disconnect has galvanized us here on the streets to persist. We say people over property. And until that's clearly what's happening, we're not gonna stop. We're gonna keep occupying this street. We meet twice a day at People's Way, and there's many ongoing various groups that have collected and become a thing here. You have Agape showing up. There's an original group of men that protected these streets. A lot of them that don't even feel safe to be here because of misalignments that have now happened since. You have GFGM that helped preserve the art. You have the businesses that have lasted and withstood, from the barbershop to Just Turkey and the laundromat. And, you know, it's truly a beautiful thing to still show up to and feel like we're doing something that might really be changing the world, because there are people showing up daily from around the world to tap in, and they get pilgrim guides and they learn about the space. But we're also taking it other places. We have the Twin Flames exhibit that's at ASU Art Museum for a 6-month stay that has 5,000 pieces of protest street art on display there. And you got over 500 people a week seeing it from there. And it just keeps continuing. So it really tells me that we haven't even started to get high on our mountain that we're climbing. We're just getting going here. Because again, you go into the world, everyone's dealing with the police. No one likes the police from their roots. Everyone wants to feel safe and says we need some sort of security. But I went to high school in Linden Hills. Police don't come to Linden Hills. Why? Because they're well resourced. If this North Minneapolis, if this South Side, 38th Chicago was well resourced, we wouldn't need the police either. It's that simple. So where does that stem from? And we got a war machine causing the genocide in Gaza. That's where our money's been going recently.
Come on.
How do you respond to that, Chair?
I think that we do need police, but I don't enforcement, because law enforcement is one action. In Minnesota, our licensed peace officers, and police can be a resource, but I want to acknowledge, I get it, good policing, good people that lead with humanity, because there are still people out there that do prey on the weak and the vulnerable. There are people that do that, and who's going to protect them? I keep bringing it up. My grandmother, North Minneapolis residence, 83 years old. Her townhome's been shot in 3 times. Who is going to stop that? But we also need to acknowledge that, like I said before, police have to be a part of the community. We cannot just be showing up where we're responding to things. We have to be proactive, be there before things happen, build those relationships, and have a real relationship. Because there are always going to be people out there that prey on the vulnerable and weak.
And so what I think, Jordan, I appreciate your comment. I think you are clear, and it's appropriate to articulate the vision of a community that is self-reliant, that is not dependent on an external power to keep order. And I think that's the same thing you're saying, Sheriff, is that we have to see ourselves as the authority, as community. And Andrea, city council member for this neighborhood, same question. How do we, I'm so proud that you were elected and that you were elected sheriff, proud that Keith Ellison was elected attorney general. I'm proud of the number of Black and brown people who are now serving in Minnesota State Legislature. The numbers are phenomenal. We've never had it before. And these leaders now are changing and turning the levers of power and resource to our communities in ways they've never done before. I think that's major. Andrea, what do you think?
I think that's true. I'm deeply proud to be of service in this community. I ask myself, how did I end up being here at this time? And it's for a reason. And it's true that change is happening, but it's not enough. We need much more. And I do think that we have leaders in place in the legislature, as the attorney general, as the sheriff, and other roles that can help to bring those kinds of changes that we need to see, to help bring resources to this community. And yeah, it's a phenomenal thing to be serving in these roles, and yet we have to keep pushing for more change.
Okay, great. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. We've got about 10 minutes left for the program. I wanted to bring a couple of more voices in. I think John is here, or Thomas Berry's here, and Kellis, I think. Sheriff, thank you. Sheriff's got to leave. Thank you so much. Andrea, thank you so much as well. And I want to bring a couple more people. Al Flowers and Mark Anderson are here. And then Kellis is here, I believe. You have a seat right here. So making this happen as we go. But you guys have to be very quiet. One more thing to say, go right ahead. Go ahead.
Hey, it's important that we say their names.
Bring you back the camera. Can you bring that camera back on, Cooper?
You can see him.
Okay. Go ahead.
It's just a quick response to some of what was said is if we say their names, specifically the names of such people have fallen, taken by police since George Floyd. We got Amir Locke, we got Winston Smith, we got Ricky Cobb, we got Takel Sundberg. There's so many here in Minneapolis, and that's the proof in the pudding that this work is so unfinished, and we got so much more to do. So you got to say their names. George Floyd.
There we go. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jordan P. Karras. We're going to go for the last few minutes here, touching on two different things. I have to ask people in the studio to be quiet so that we can, we're broadcasting. It's difficult to hear, but have a seat. And Al Flowers is here along with Mark Anderson. Al and Mark, you're working with the
Commission.
Community. I need you all to be quiet for me. Okay. Go ahead. You have a seat. Al Flowers and Mark.
Mark Anderson.
What's going on with your work now? Just tell me quickly what's the status of the work you're doing with the police community relations. Trying to get some quiet because we're broadcasting. People that are not on the air, please go outside because you're interrupting the broadcast. Please go outside. Please go outside. Thank you. And please do not talk because we have to do the live program. Thank you so much. Al Flowers, Mark Anderson, Reverend Bethel's not here, but give us a quick update on what you're doing with the Unity Community Mediation Team, UCMT. Pick up the microphone there. There's not the headset, but the microphone. There's a microphone there. You guys can share that. Just hold and speak to just one.
Okay,
Yeah, go ahead, talking to that.
No, Al, we one thing we know, I know you had the Attorney General here, Ellison Watts, so important, especially for the African American community. We got to see how we rebuild these relationships. And, you know, and the Attorney General said something, I was sitting there listening, that we know an incident gonna happen again. But what the UCMT did is trying to, we formed sites in all over the city of Minneapolis, in north, south, Minneapolis, where people can come and file complaints at, so you don't have to go downtown. And that's what we've been working on, the community engagement part mostly, so we can rebuild these relationships, especially with the African American and Native community who suffered the most under this. So that's what we did. We had a mentorship. We met with some of the incoming recruits yesterday, but before they get on the street, and we talked about our papers, our organizations, and things that they should go be involved in, volunteer, and be a part of. And that's what we got to do while we are continuing to do this fight, continuing to pray for the Floyd family, and that's what we've been doing now. You know?
We're going to have you come back to spend more time talking about that. I want to quickly go to Thomas Berry. Thomas Berry is with the Village Arms, and talk about the work you all are doing right now, Thomas.
So we just successfully got the African American Family Preservation Act passed through the state of Minnesota, which is a historic bill, which is reducing, you know, out-of-home placement for African American children throughout the state of Minnesota and throughout the Twin Cities. Khalees Houston was the she was the tip of the spear of the bill. She's the one who stuck with it throughout the entire process. She is the author. I know that they keep on referring to her as a community partner. She's not a community partner. She was there when Jeff Hayden started with it and Rena Moran. She was there with Bobby Joe Champion and State Rep Abaje. She's more than a community partner. She embodied the bill. She worked with the families. She had the pilot at Hennepin County for 3 years that showed that the bill was successful. So she did a lot of great work with this bill and for families. It's not about the individuals, y'all. It's about the families. So I'm just proud to be a part of that, to know that more Black families will be able to reserve their, you know, their children.
Thank you for that brief report. Really, we're out of time. This goes so quickly. We thank you all, but we're here tomorrow again. We'll continue the conversation. If you got some points you want to make, we're here to help you lift your voice, clarify your issues. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today, the Healing Circle. We're broadcasting live from King Demetrius Pendleton's Listen to Us studio here at George Floyd Square. We're here tomorrow, our first Saturday broadcast. Join us. We'll see you, and thank you.
A divine